Welcome back to Invest Global. Today we're discussing Slovakia citizenship and residency options, mainly focusing in on citizenship by descent and naturalization. So I recently spent some time in the capital city of Bratislava, and with this, the passport caught my eye. I toured some real estate properties, didn't really like what I saw necessarily, but what you have essentially here is access to a lot of countries that most passports don't allow you to access, and a lot of visa-free on arrival travel, actually over 180 countries visa-free on arrival. So pretty interesting as far as that goes. With this, I'm going to be focusing in on the kind of benefits of citizenship by descent and a bit of the drawbacks of the naturalization program. Personally, probably wouldn't do the naturalization program, to be quite honest with you. It's going to total over 13 years, and a lot can change in there, but we'll get to that here in a second. There'll be timestamps throughout this whole video, so you guys can skip ahead and go back at any point in time. Do understand that all these things are subject to change. A lot of these citizenship and residency programs change pretty frequently because there's a lot of bureaucracy in a lot of these countries. So keep that in mind if you're watching that, 5 years, 10 years from now. So basically with citizenship by descent, the reason this program stands out, and it's really, really interesting to at least consider if your either parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents were born in Slovakia or held the passport at any point in time, and are citizens of the country. So if you have the documents essentially, and it goes back to that third generation, you can potentially qualify for your own Slovakian citizenship, and in that case, acquiring the passport. One thing is you do actually have to physically be here. There's some other countries with the citizenship by Ancestry program where you don't have to actually be there. You can basically just go to the embassy of whatever individual country it is in wherever you are currently and acquire there, apply there if you have all the proper documents. So with this, that is one kind of drawback, but a pro, I would say, that you don't necessarily have with the citizenship by naturalization program is you don't have to know the language. You don't have to really do any of these tests that you have to do with a lot of other places. If you're applying for citizenship by ancestry or descent, you can kind of interchange those two words. But with this, basically, like I said, the reason this program stands out is in a lot of other countries, for example, my ancestors are Irish, right? So the problem is my grandparents and my parents were not born there. They didn't have citizenship, but my great-grandparents did. So if Ireland had the same kind of options as a Slovakia, potentially I would be able to acquire the Irish passport through citizenship by descent or ancestry, right? So that's one kind of interesting thing that's going on here with Slovakia. So if you don't know, ask your parents, ask your grandparents, try and maybe find through ancestry type of things. If you may think so, because this can be a really interesting passport if you can acquire it, especially because, the fees that go along with a citizenship by ancestry program are really, really low when you contrast them with something like citizenship by naturalization or especially citizenship by investments. Under like 500 euros, and mostly it's like right around 200 euros for this specific option. So if you have any questions on that or you want me to connect you with someone, we do have a contact email down below in the description, so you can reach out there. We also have a Telegram group if you just want a group of like-minded investors. That's linked down below in the description as well. So moving on to the citizenship by naturalization option. So the reason that I said this one, at least in my opinion, is not the best is mainly because you have all the sunk time and so much can change in that time period. So essentially, you would acquire a temporary residency, and with this, after 5 years, then you can acquire permanent residency. With permanent residency, once you reach that 5-year mark, then you have to spend an additional 8 years just to apply for citizenship by naturalization. So totaling 13 years, a lot can change in that time. Personally, especially with like the issues with their tax. Some people will have a tax burden of around 40% in Slovakia, and in my opinion, not really worth it. But if you're very, very passionate about the country, highly recommend, first of all, visiting before you jump into something like this and committing 13 years or even just 5 years to get permanent residency. Visit. I did really enjoy it, actually really, really good Slovakian food, incredible kind of life in Bratislava, beautiful place, lots of caves, lots of castles all along Slovakia. You have really, really close access to Austria. Actually, after I spent time in Bratislava, I hit Vienna and then went down to if I can remember the capital of Slovenia, it's Ljubljana. Ljubljana, Slovenia. Spent some time there, and then spent some time in Lake Bled. And I'll probably be covering Slovenia next. But basically, so those are the two options, just to recap, and then we'll get into some of these global macro indicators for Slovakia. Like I said, personally, not the biggest fan of real estate or individual investments in the country, but if you're interested in acquiring the passport, which it is a great passport, based on freedom of movement especially, it's a situation you may as well consider, right? So just to recap, citizenship by naturalization, you have to have 5 years, acquire the permanent residency, then after 8 years of having that permanent residency, then you can apply for citizenship by naturalization. You have to take some tests, have a basic knowledge on Slovakia. Also, you have the language. Then if you're looking at citizenship by descent or ancestry, it goes back to the third generation. You have to actually physically be in Slovakia to acquire this, and it can potentially take up to 2 years actually to get the pass. So for macro indicators on Slovakia, we're looking at a GDP of $104 billion, population of around 5.5 million people, a GDP per capita of 20,000. Not bad in inflation rate. Obviously, you're using the euro here, so 3.3%. Unemployment rate is 7.8%. Government budget is 6.2% of GDP, and debt to GDP is actually pretty good, 60% of GDP. Okay, so GDP year-over-year growth is interesting as well. So 9.6%, that's kind of compelling. So that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, button, all. Invest Global. We have, again, Twitter and Instagram at investglobal_IO. Telegram group link down below. The contact information is down there as well. And until next time.